What we're going to do is look at simplifying polynomials. Now, before we simplify polynomials, what we need to do is clarify different types of polynomials. So we're going to be describing polynomials based on the number of terms that they have and the number of degrees that they have. And so we're going to name them based off of that. So the different terms, what we have is just an example with 5. That would be considered a monomial because it's one term, and it's considered a constant because there's no variable. For the next one, this is considered a binomial. Binomial means 2 terms, just like a bicycle has 2 wheels. And this is considered a linear because it has an x. For the next one, what we have is a trinomial. Trinomial because it has 3 terms, just like a tricycle has 3 wheels. So pluses and minuses separate terms. And then it's a quadratic, and that's because it has degree 2. Our exponent is a 2. Then anything that has 4 more terms, we're just going to call it a polynomial, meaning many terms. And then this is specifically a cubic because it's degree 3. And so that's the highest that we're going to get to in Algebra 1. In Algebra 2, what we'll do is we'll talk more about the different other degrees that there are. So for example 1, what we're going to do is we're going to name each polynomial by their term and their degree. So in this case, what we have is 1 term. So we're going to call this a monomial. And then the degree would be 1, so we would call that a linear. For the next one, this is a binomial. Once again, because it has 2 terms, pluses and minuses separate terms. The exponent, the highest exponent is a 2, so we would consider that a quadratic. For the next one, we see that there are 3 terms. Once again, pluses and minuses separate terms. So this would be a trinomial. And the highest degree is 2, so we would call this a quadratic. And then for the next one, we would call this a polynomial because it has 4 terms. And we would call this a cubic because it's degree 3. Pause the video and try the next 4 and see how you do. For letter E, this would be a monomial. And since there's no variable, we're going to call this a constant. For the next one, we're going to call this a binomial. And this would be a cubic. For this one, this is also a binomial because it has 2 terms. And this is a linear because the exponent is degree 1. And then what we have is a trinomial. And the highest degree is 2, so we call this a quadratic. Now, for example 2, what we're going to be doing is adding and subtracting the polynomials. We're going to be adding and subtracting the like terms. So for the first one, we have 4x and x, and that would be 5x. Then what we have is -7 and -9, and that would be -16. For the next one, we have an x squared. There's no other x squared, so we're just going to bring the x squared down. Then what we're going to do is we're going to look at the x, and the negative right here, we could think of this as -x minus 9 if we were to distribute the negative. So we're just going to bring down the -x. And then what we have is a -9 and a -9, which is minus 18, or plus a -18. For the next one, we're going to do the same thing. We see 2x squared, 3x squared, so that would be 5x squared. Then we're going to look at our x's, and we have 3x minus x, so that would be plus 2x. And then what we have is minus 5 and plus 1, which is minus 4. Okay, pause the video and try those next three. So if we're looking at letter D, we're going to start off with the 2x and the 5x, and that gives us 7x. Then what we have is the -7 and the +2, and that gives us -5. For the next one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to distribute the negative to each of the terms. And so I'm going to look at my x's, and I see -7x. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my constant values, and I see a +7. For the next one, once again, the subtraction sign I'm going to distribute to each of the terms. So I get positive 4x squared, positive x, and minus 1. So I have the x squared and the 4x squared, and that gives us 5x squared. Then the minus 2x and the positive x, that gives us negative x. And then what we have is a -1 and a -1, which gives us a -2.